Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. CCTV cameras to be installed in schools following Brayton Park primary abduction. Medical facility goes up in flames in St. Anne. And later in sports, Mount Pleasant wins first Jamaica Premier League title. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters, and here are the details. There was overwhelming support for students and staff at the Brayton Primary School in St. Catherine today following the abduction and killing of 8-year-old Daniel Rowe. During a special devotional exercise, Education Minister Favour Williams promised to install CCTV cameras at the school. Kalisha Williams is there.
As the sun shines brightly in the Sunshine City, tears have been raining down at the Brayton Primary School. Just a few days ago, Daniel Rowe was roaming this compound, but today a devotional service was held on her behalf. The 8-year-old was abducted last week, her throat slashed, and she only survived a day after. Today's devotional exercise was to pay support to the family, her friends, as well as the school, and there was overwhelming support from the police, the Ministry of Education, and other stakeholders. The family was also here, but I can tell you they could barely cope during the devotional exercise. In fact, her mom fainted and had to be rushed to the hospital, but she returned a few hours after. I can also say that the ministry has promised to install CCTV cameras across primary schools in the island, and they'll begin the initiative here at the Brayton Primary School. I've been here since 8 o'clock, and I'll be here for a few more hours, and I'll have more updates in primetime news at 7.
Thanks, Kalisha. Investigations are now underway into what caused a massive fire at a medical facility in St. Anne this morning. It's not clear at this time what started the fire, but it's estimated that losses could be in the millions. Shamala Pullen reports.
Minutes after 4 Monday morning, about 17 firefighters responded to cause of a fire at the Bay Medical Facility in Runaway Bay, St. Anne. The fire was so intense that it took the firemen some time before they could get inside the 18-room building. Anthony Hines is the superintendent in charge of the St. Anne Fire Department. He says 3 units responded.
The building was practically fortified in that very, very heavily grilled. And so it takes a team sometimes to cut away some of these grills to gain access into the building to conduct proper firefighting. The building, even though the roof was zinc on the outside, but there was shingle underneath, the ceiling was gypsum, so the fire load was very heavy. And so we had a little challenge, and the fire spread rapidly based on the type of material that were there.
Superintendent Hines is dismissing claims that there was inadequate water for the operation. Donovan Johnson, who operates the facility, says nothing was saved.
The section which housed the medical center was essentially completely gutted. There's a section of the building which is traditionally a residence, and that seems to be reasonably intact except for the furniture inside and the roof. But the section where the medical center was operating from was completely gutted. We've certainly lost a lot of equipment, medical equipment, and other supplies, medical supplies.
The cause of the fire is still being investigated, but Dr. Paul Orton, whose family owns the property from 1964, told TVJ News that he suspects the fire could have been caused by electrical issues.
What we do know is that somebody in the area said that the power outages in Runaway Bay were right through the weekend. As you know, there was a massive all-island power cut Saturday night, I think at about 7:30, 8 o'clock. Power was shut down and then was restored in certain areas. There was load shedding, but there's a meter, there's an electrical voltage meter to the house to show how the power is being used. And it showed power outages and interruptions throughout the weekend.
He says the family will have to meet to decide on the way forward. Shamala Pullen, TVJ News.
The St. James Public Health Department is raising concerns about the possibility of other mosquitoes that can cause deadly diseases like malaria. Speaking at the St. James Municipal Corporation's monthly meeting recently, Medical Officer of Health for St. James, Dr. Tanika Bailey-Small, says the Aedes aegypti mosquito is not the only mosquito that is of concern. She says there are other mosquitoes that is of concern, for example, the one that causes malaria.
Malaria, thankfully we don't have any cases of malaria in Jamaica. We do, however, from time to time, will end up with imported cases, and the Ministry of Health has been quite robust in handling such cases when they occur, but we do not presently have any imported cases. But we still have to make sure that we reduce the sources.
Meanwhile, she says the Public Health Department is working with citizens to ensure they take the necessary precautions to avoid these diseases.
Certainly the mosquito breed doesn't need a lot of water, so we really have to pay attention to simple things around the household, or dish drains, or vases that have the nice pretty flowers but there's a little bit of water, or empty containers. So it's important that we not just check outside what's happening around in the yard, but also within the house as well, to see those little containers that are may store just even a small amount of water, where the mosquito lays the eggs, and in a few days then we have the mosquitoes that create not just nuisance but can also cause significant disease.
The community-based Rehabilitation Jamaica CBRJ is one of just a few schools for persons with disabilities in Jamaica. The non-governmental organization, which has been in operation since 1982, is on the verge of closing.
One of the issues that we're having is that our expenses are far outweighing our revenues. And from a financial perspective, that means bankruptcy.
He says it takes about $45 million to run the 4 locations of a special needs school. However, its revenue is less than 50% of that amount. Mr. Conrad Wright says the institution has been getting help from the Education Ministry and the Labour Ministry. However, it will take much more to keep the school afloat. It is why he, along with parents, are appealing for help.
We have to be turning away students because we don't have the capacity or the means, which means that there's a great need in the community. There's a great need in society for the services we offer.
If this center shut down now, I don't know what I would do for my son, because this is the only school that will facilitate him right now.
With an individual, just to help. Even the school fee, understand that it's probably about $12,000 per term, and some parents can't really afford it. Some can't find it, so what going to happen to that child? That child doesn't make it into school, so the child stays home, and so we're really appealing to the wider Jamaican to really help.
The unjust enrichment of France following the Haitian Revolution in 1804 was fingered as the beginning of the crippling of the French-speaking Caribbean nation. It's why the recent reparations reports say Haiti is entitled to over $1 billion from France. But what's Jamaica's role in all of this? Jamila Maitland explains.
When David Rudder's hit song Haiti, I'm Sorry was released in 1990, it flooded the airwaves in Port-au-Prince, the Caribbean, and other parts of the world. More than 30 years later, Judge Patrick Robinson, former president of the American Society of International Law, says the lyrics, written as an apology to the French-speaking nation, still resonates today.
We in Jamaica must choose today as the day when we turn our heads to assist our neighbor, our brothers and sisters in the crisis that it now faces.
Judge Robinson, who was speaking at the launch of a study of how much Caribbean countries are entitled to following the transatlantic slave trade, said Haiti was hardest hit.
France is required to return to Haiti the sum of 90 million francs, about 1.4 billion in today's money, that it extracted from Haiti as compensation for plantation owners who lost their property, that is, the enslaved. The basis for this requirement is the principle of unjust enrichment.
He believes Jamaica should do more to assist. A Haitian delegation is currently on the island to meet with the government and other Caribbean countries. High on the agenda, how to address the political and economic instability in Haiti.
The problems that Haiti have suffered over the years are well known. But it is beyond question that this unjust extraction of wealth from a newly independent country is part of the explanation for the difficulties that our Caribbean neighbor has faced over a very long time.
Jamila Maitland, TVJ News.
The Kingston Public Hospital KPH recently received a vital piece of equipment that will help to save more lives at the facility. Acting Senior Medical Officer at KPH, Dr. Samantha Nicholson, says a number of patients will be able to benefit from the use of this equipment daily. It's also expected to enable healthcare workers to attend and care for more patients in a timely manner.
A patient flatlines, you can see that and trigger the necessary life support measures. If the patient has an irregular, abnormal rhythm that may be required to shock them, this machine will pick it up and you will hear it beep, 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 beep. So you will know, and it will call the whole health team to converge on that patient, because that happens in seconds. So while this patient might have been seen by the nurse now, and maybe the nurse says, okay, I need to go and get this medication for the patient. In the 2 minutes the nurse steps away to get that medication. This could happen, but because this monitor is here, the nurse will hear the alarm and run back and be able to trigger a response from everyone.
The equipment was donated by a private corporate entity. Dr. Nicholson says the monitor was well needed and it will go a far way at the Type A health facility.
It's used to have a real-time picture of what is happening with your patient, how sick your patient is, and allows you to therefore respond in real time instead of waiting. You know, you can see right away, oh, my patient's heart rate is too high, oh, my patient's blood pressure is too high. No, in the absence of a monitor where you're now depending on someone to manually do this assessment, then you're gonna have to, it's very labor intensive. You have to get somebody to come over and check the blood pressure every hour, every 15 minutes. A monitor can cycle automatically and be checking that blood pressure every 15 minutes, every half an hour.
The Southern Regional Health Authority says hospitals in the region continue to be stretched by an overwhelming number of patients. Chairman of the authority, Wayne Chen, says these patients require treatment for crash-related injuries, particularly those involving motorcycles. He says there are also a number of persons seeking treatment for respiratory illnesses.
It continues to be an issue. For some reason this year, the level of respiratory ailments in particular have been stubborn in terms of the numbers. And, you know, it raises questions in my mind, you know, I'm not a scientist, as to whether we are seeing some impact, I would say post-COVID impact, let me put it that way. If the experience during the pandemic has somehow created I don't know if it has lowered our immunity, if it is a psychological state coming out of the pandemic. I suspect other countries have experienced a similar upturn in particular health issues. Early days in terms of analyzing the data, but it certainly has put our hospitals under pressure.
Motorists are being urged to exercise caution when using the nation's roads.
I will again ask Jamaicans who use the road in particular to be careful. I ask our cyclists to be careful. We see too many serious injuries and deaths by our cyclists riding without helmets, performing risky maneuvers and use of the road. You know, we hear about the deaths, but the serious injuries, the permanent injuries that many of the cyclists are suffering, I beg our cyclists and motorists to take more care on the road, because it might feel good today, but the lifelong consequences create suffering for you and your families.
And it's now time for the Business Minute. Jamaica spent more money on imports for the month of January compared with the first month in 2022. The Statistical Institute of Jamaica says goods coming into the country were valued at $592.3 million. This represents a 12% increase over the $528 million spent in 2022. The increased spending was due mainly to higher imports of consumer goods, which moved up by 21%, fuels and lubricants up by 15.2%, and capital goods, excluding motor cars, up by 21%. Further afield, UBS has completed its emergency takeover of embattled local rival Credit Suisse, creating a giant Swiss bank with a balance sheet of $1.6 trillion and great muscle in wealth management. The group will oversee $5 trillion of assets, giving UBS a leading position in key markets it would otherwise have needed years to grow in size and reach. Credit Suisse shares were up 0.4% on their last day of trading, while UBS were also up around 0.4% in midday trade. The two banks jointly employ 120,000 worldwide, although UBS has already said it will be cutting jobs to reduce costs and take advantage of synergies. And that's it for the Business Minute. Time now for the top regional and international stories.
Haiti's Prime Minister Dr. Ariel Henry has warned against imposing an outside solution to the political and socio-economic situation in his French-speaking CARICOM country. This caution as he welcomed yet another initiative to build consensus and allow for inclusive participation in a neutral environment. He says while he's happy that CARICOM has convinced all the stakeholders to have the discussion, it is only the first step. He notes that there will be other discussions to go through all the necessary stages to rebuild Haiti. Some 13,000 residents were evacuated in Philippines' Albay province after a volcano erupted. Volcano Mayon has been spewing sulfuric gas and lava for the past 24 hours. Authorities prohibited entry to the 6-kilometer radius of the volcano, warning of rockfalls, landslides, and ballistic fragments. The government estimates that 88% of the local population have already evacuated and is working to evacuate the rest. And Silvio Berlusconi, the former Italian prime minister who bounced back from sex scandals and corruption allegations, has died at age 86. He died at a hospital in Milan. In April, Berlusconi was treated for a
And we do apologize for the incorrect inserts in that wrap. Now we head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report. Jordan Ford is standing by.